I'd like to thank the Process Art Discovery audience for joining me today. I'm Lynda Norman. I'm a watercolor artist in the beautiful province of British Columbia. Today I wanted to share with you something that I was having some fun with earlier in the week. I've been wanting to paint eyes for animals, or animals, and getting the eyes right, I guess, is what more like it. But I really did have some fun with it, and I thought I would share that with you today. So earlier this week, I was at my paint group that I hang out with on Wednesday mornings, and you know, I'm always inspired by the other people who paint in the group. There's oil painters and acrylic painters, mixed media painters. There's people who do all kinds of wonderful, wonderful things, and there are other watercolor artists as well, and we get to share ideas and techniques. So I went with an idea that I wanted to learn more about painting animals, especially the eyes, because someone told me that that's where you start. And I've done you know, birds and bunnies and different things over the years, but I really felt that I want to explore that a bit more. So just got some ideas and spoke with a few other artists and came up with an idea on my own. One of the things that holds me back, and you may find this as well, is trying to get the eyes symmetrically placed on the body of whatever you're painting, and I really have a hard time with that. It's hard to make those spaces look very similar. And I know in life, half of our face is always different than the other half, and I'm sure the same is similar with animals. There may be a little bit of different coloring or different shape, perhaps. I'm not sure. I'll have to study animals a little more closely. But anyway, finding that place where you can get both eyes similar, or the same, was a challenge. So as I was sitting there listening to other people with their wonderful advice on maybe where I could take some of those, I was looking at my little paint satchel, brush that satchel, and these little scissors were sitting there, and I thought, hey, that might be an idea. You know, often some of the pictures I've been looking at, especially with owls, I'm intrigued with owls. The top eyelid seems to be a bit hooded, and to me that gives them that look of mystery. So that's what I did. I took this, and I took a pencil, and I don't know where my pencil went there. There we go. And I just lightly drew that shape. And then I took my little Levinson 1.5-inch goat synthetic brush and some nice thick, rich, actually Mayan dark blue. I didn't use black. Mayan dark blue paint, and just sort of started the outline. I knew that in the pupil area of an owl, it's very round, and there had to be a little bit of white showing where there was light glinting, and I just took it from there. So using my typical colors in my basic palette here, my Mayan dark blue, my quinacridone gold, and then I just scruffed the side of the brush with some buff titanium to get an indication of feathers. Drew a lovely little diamond. That diamond may get darker on that one, I'm not sure. But I don't know, I kind of love the unfinishedness of it. I love that I can mount this onto a cradle board perhaps and varnish it, and it'll be kind of a unique version of an owl. So I thought we'd just quickly go through that again. I don't know that I'll make them the same orientation. I also wondered how that would work for making both eyes. I think with an owl, the eyes are pretty similar in their orientation on the face. So I'm just going to do that. It looks like a little pair of glasses. Oh, he's cocking his head a little bit. That's okay, owls do that. All right, so that's kind of all I wanted to do with those. for a little template. As much as I don't paint by reference, I'm still kind of leery about getting things when I do want them to be a little more symmetrical. So I will just make the, I think in a lot of the photos that I've seen, if I've observed, the yellow part of the iris or the eyeball fills up pretty much that whole space. So I'm going to make this rounded part almost right to the edge. I might just add a bit more of the dark shading on the side. And then to give them that kind of mysterious look, I don't think I'm going to make the whole eyeball. I kind of like that it's only partially there. And this is the part I should have probably used a something else with circles on it to make that round part. But I'm going to just go with that for now. I can always round that out with my brush in a little bit. So here we go. I've wetted my palette. The Mayan Dark Blue is ready to go. I'm just barely touching the tip of my brush in there to start with, and I'm going to turn my page and just get... I'm painting wet on dry, which is again another thing that I don't often do. So I want to make sure that my paint on my brush, my load from the palette, is wet enough that it's going to flow on this page. And we'll just give that a little bit of an outline. I'm glad you're here with me on this, because I might need lots of moral support on this one. It's going to be a bit of a challenge, maybe, but this is how we learn, right? Who knows? In a year's time, I might be an okay owl painter. You just never know. Now I want to remember to keep the white of the pupil for that reflection. I can always go in afterwards, I suppose, and add a bit of white. I'm not sure that that would be quite as effective, but it might if I mess it up. So I want to keep in mind. Let's say that the light for this purposes is coming from the left side. So I'm just going to make sure my paint is wet enough. I'm just going to leave just a spot there, and as you know, I very often paint wet on wet, so this wet on dry is a new process for me, and that white spot does not have to be a complete perfect shape of any kind. It just needs to be a bit of indication that there's some light coming in that side and reflecting off the sheen of the iris, or the pupil rather. Now this may come out looking like a cartoon. We won't know till we get there, right? If any of you have tips on how these eyeballs can be perfected, or ideas how we can do that, please let me know. Yeah, I think that white piece has to be a little further on that side. Maybe we'll make this one a little bit of an angle. I'm not well versed in perspective. My husband tells me that all the time. My paintings are often a little wonky, but I don't normally let that bother me. I figure, especially for these little owl guys, it's gonna add character, right? I was thinking of calling this series something really fun and funky. If I get to to actually make a series. So when you're painting, watercolor, you know, it gets a bad rap. It is really very, very forgiving and very fun. And if you use the right tools for what you're trying to achieve, I wouldn't want to try this with anything else other than my Lebens and 1.5 inch goat synthetic blend brush. And you know, I love this brush so much, and I had a viewer admonish me about talking about it so much, but I love it, and I will talk about it because if you get a chance to try it, I hope you do. It is really a game changer. Okay, I'm going to leave that one just, I think, with that amount of white for now. I can always go back in and cover up a bit more of that white if I need to. Well, whoops, we have pupils. This is exciting. I think my paints are still wet enough. I won't have to worry much about wetting them again. Now for the quinacridone gold, I'm going to wait until that is dry. I don't want my wet quinacridone gold to somehow touch into this black or dark blue area, and it would, you know, certainly make a mess, because I think it would pull the, you know, pull the blue down a little bit into the gold, and the gold pushes away as well. So it might be a bit of an issue. So I'm just gonna play around with this shape of that round eyeball, or pupil rather. And we'll just let that sit for a moment. As I said, with this scruffy bits of feathers, it kind of looks like a bedraggled, I'll call him an owl. I did use the side of just this same brush. And I love this. I mean, I've probably just about worn it to death. It's been years, and I still use this brush every single day. I have new ones, fresher ones, but still end up coming back to this one all the time. So if I tilt my page, I can still see that is still pretty wet in those eyeballs. I'm going to, the temptation is to put a paper towel on top and let it pull away some of that wetness, but that I run the risk of pulling away the color, and I want that black to stay, stay as dark as possible. So I think what I'll do is we'll wait for this to dry, and we'll come back in a few minutes. So that lovely Mayan dark blue has dried, and I think we can go in now with our quinacridone gold. As I said, we didn't want to touch anything wet against that wet pupil. So let's just get in here and get this quinacridone gold filled in. I mean, this is a pretty thick mix of the quinacridone gold. Owl's eyes are very intense. Some of them, if I remember correctly, pictures that I've seen, they're quite yellow. And so if we add a bit more water to the quinacridone gold, it does become a brighter yellow. At this point, I mean, I'm using this because it's in my palette here on my table, but you could use any beautiful bright yellow, depending on how, what level of is it hue, the tone and hue of a color. If you want something more lemony, then you would go to maybe a lemon yellow or even a Hansa yellow. Some of those can be a little bit brighter. But this is a start. We'll get this in, and then we can fine-tune it. I'm actually quite enjoying this. I'm not usually a detailed painter, so this is a bit of an exercise in patience for me. And thank you for being here and indulging this little foray into something a little bit different from what I normally do. It's always good to have an accomplice along, right? We've got some spring right now while we're filming, and so we've got some beautiful art shows coming up in the next little while. Things are opening up for markets and things. I have an in-person 2-day workshop coming up at the end of April, and it's going to be right in the heart of our beautiful district where our farmers market is, and I'm excited about that. I think we might even take a little foray out from the art table and take in some of the farmers market things to maybe bring back some ideas to paint. Now, I did touch my brush right there with a little bit of the blue earlier, and I can see where it's going to leave a bit of a dark spot, but that's okay. We'll call it a shadow. Can't put a bird in this one, so we have to go with what's there, right? And just add a bit more color into that part there. And as I look at it, as we go further, I mean, I can always go in and round that pupil even a bit more, or round the edges a bit more, depending on how I want to see that come together. But for now, with the eyeballs in place, we can start just quickly going with, as I said, the side of the brush. And I think, oh yeah, I'm going to use some buff titanium. I don't have any white in my palette, and I could go dig some up somewhere, but I just want to try the buff titanium. It's a light enough color. It's opaque. It's going to give a different dimension to the appearance of the feathers. And with this little guy, I did kind of outbursts of feathers around the eyes, and I think I can do that as long as I don't go in there and touch that gold. And I'm just, with the side of this brush, it's just so luscious and lovely that I can just quickly give those little flicks out. And I'll do the same on this side. Paint is fairly thick on my brush. And if I use the side of the brush, you can see where that texture is it's sort of working itself out onto the page. I will go in and add some more of the Mayan blue for some shadows and things happening in there. I may have got these eyes a little too close together, but I'm sure that we can make this. Oh, now you see I've touched. I don't know if you can see that. I've touched the buff titanium with my wet brush, and I had a fairly wet bit of the quinacridone gold there, and it actually found its way into that buff titanium. It's quinacridone gold is a sneaky color, and I'm going to leave that because, oh, and there's some more coming through on that side. Isn't that? Never fear. We will just gently touch, and then we'll come back to that in a little bit once it's had a moment to dry. I don't mind that there's a little bit of that gold. I think we'll incorporate a bit of that into our feathers at some point as well. And I can see where my brush only went that far, and I can almost see where there's going to be the outline of that diamond for its nose. So that'll be, we'll just touch the brush on that side just to enforce that a tiny bit. Yeah, and we've still got some dark coming through there. I'm going to just touch that one more time. Let that dry. What did I mention this is testing my patience? Yeah, I'm a very impatient person sometimes when it comes to getting. I guess because maybe I'm excited to see the end result. Does that make sense? I'm going with that. And so if we just give sort of an indication here of maybe where some of these scruffy feathers might be headed, then we can go back in afterwards and sort of define them a bit more. This is maybe down here where the body of the owl is going to be more. Oh, he looks a little grumpy. Let's take a look there. Okay. If I was to go in, I'm just going to touch the side of my brush in the Mayan dark blue. And just here and there, give a few more crazy swipes, feathers. I'm still going to go back in, I think, in a little bit and put a little bit more dark around those eyes. But I want to make sure that I've got some feathers indicated here, and so this will be sort of like an abstract owl, right? Feathers a little bit of. I was thinking as I'm doing this, once I get the darkness in for its beak, I might want to have some indication of some feathers coming over the top. So as you know, with watercolor, typically you paint light to dark. So I'm going to have to think about how I'm going to come in with those feather wisps, and that might be maybe a bit of P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White with the very fine tip of my brush, just to indicate some wispy little bits there. Or there's titanium white. Daniel Smith has a nice titanium white, or a Chinese white. So there's options for doing that. Whoops, now I've done that. I've got the that diamondy shape for this beak. And I'm going to take a little bit of the white and try to spread that out a tiny bit more. And I didn't wet my paper towel, which is something I probably should do. You have to be careful if you're painting wet on dry and if you're adding, too much dampness. But I think if I just go in on some of these darker marks, and then we'll just sort of indicate perhaps the shape of a body of the owl here. And just a little bit more on the edges of the eyes. I think I've got my brush, it's a bit wet. for making anything too specific here. With these fine-tipped brushes, whether you're using this Levinson 1.5 inch goat hair synthetic blend, or whether you're using your rigger brush or any other fine-tipped brush, even some quill brushes are beautiful because they have the nice belly of the brush, but then they come to a nice fine tip. You can use them almost like a pen, especially if you're painting wet on dry, right? And so you can shape these forms as long as you're doing it, like I say, wet onto dry. And this might be a bit wet on the edges from where I put those. This is a bit wet over here. I'll try that a bit. Because, as I said, I'm impatient and I want this to come together pretty quickly here. And the nice thing about painting something like this nice and loose is that you have artistic license to make, you can make the eyes as big and round or squinty as you want. You can make the beak as big and curved as you want. And like I say, I think if I cover some of that beak with some light afterwards. So if I'm this guy's making me laugh. I'm just adding water here just to bring down the this body of this poor little owl. I want to give him he looks quite undignified, so I don't know if I can help him with that, but I do like how this the Mayan dark blue is just kind of working its way down. It's almost like a little vignette happening here, and he's kind of a fun little creature. Like I say, I'm going to have to come up with a name for, because I think I'm going to do more of these. They're just a lot of fun. And this is right now. This little guy looks a little worried. But we'll see where he goes. So wet on dry is quite different, and again, it's just getting a feel for how much water you need on your brush, how much pigment load you're going to have. And I'll go from there. So again, once it's dry, I will maybe round his eyes a little bit more and work on that a tiny bit. But for all intents and purposes, I think this little guy is, I'm pretty happy that he came out a little bit on the wonky side. I'm going to continue to muck about probably for a little bit, getting him a little less startled looking, perhaps. I don't know, maybe he needs to stay startled. I don't know. But if you come up with a name for this fellow, put it in the comments. I would like to hear your interpretations of that. Anyway, something lighthearted, something fun. I'm so happy that you were here with me to share this time playing around, exploring something a little bit new. Maybe you're inspired to try something as fun on your own as well. If you do, let me know. All right. I could play with this guy for hours, and Lorenz just told me that he thinks it looks like a grumpy cat. And as he said, now I can't unsee that. So we created something that's open for discussion. I'd like to thank the Process Art Discovery audience for joining me today. I had a lot of fun creating this little creature. I thought it was an owl. Lorenz thinks maybe it could be a grumpy cat. I'm not sure. It matters at this point in time. What matters is that I really had fun doing it, and I hope you had fun watching. If you like what you've seen, I invite you to subscribe to the channel or head on over to the members area.